guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a happily married tag, so let's get started. Did you date much before you met your husband? I had like boyfriends here and there, but they were not serious. I think I had one serious boyfriend before I met my husband, but other than that it was just the stupid little high school flings that don't matter at all. Did online dating exist and would you have used it? I think that like it kind of existed if you count like Facebook or something like that, but like Tinder and stuff like that didn't exist until after I was already married because I'm old. So I probably would have used it, yeah. Where do you think is a great place to meet a guy? Definitely church. I tell everybody that I know if they're looking for a guy, you need to be going to church because that's where you're going to find yourself a good husband material man. What qualities would you tell single ladies to look for? Definitely the number one thing would be for a Christian man. That's very, very, very important for them to be a Christian. And honest, funny, caring, sweet, kind, good dad material. You definitely want to look for the deep things, not just like looks and, you know, superficial. You want to look deeper. What dating advice would you give your daughter? I wish that I would have waited to date and not date around in high school just to have a boyfriend. I would probably tell my daughter to wait it out. My husband waited till he was 21 to have a girlfriend of any kind, and I would love for my daughter to wait until she was ready to get married and only date men that she felt like she would want to marry. How did you meet and how old were you? I met my husband at church. We were mutual friends with a couple people who introduced us, and I was 19 years old and he was 20 at the time. Did you play hard to get? No. My mom always told me, Jana, play hard to get. The guys like hard to get. Thank gosh I didn't listen to my mom, because my husband said if I would have played hard to get, he would not have gone after me. He liked that I was into him. So, Mom, you were wrong. Did you know he was the one right away? Did he know? Yes, and our story, I know everybody says this, but I love it because it is definitely a testimony to what God can do for you. I saw Gavin one Sunday at church. We had both been going there for like 6 months, and I had never seen him before until I became a Christian. I did not see him the whole 6 months that I was there until I became a Christian, and then I saw him walk in across the sanctuary one Sunday, and no joke, I am not even lying about this, I felt a whisper in my ear, like felt a whisper in my ear that said, he is the one. That's the one you're gonna marry. And I was like, that is creepy, but I knew that it was God, so I went home that day and I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, I saw the guy that I'm going to marry today. And she was like, what's his name? What's his name? And I was like, I have no idea. I just saw him at church and I know that that's who I'm going to marry one day. And a month later, I, got all dolled up and made sure that I looked good. And I purposefully walked past him at church in the hallway, and he said that he also heard a whisper in his ear when I walked by that said, that's the one. She's going to be the girl you marry. And, we've been in love ever since. What qualities did your husband love about you when we first started dating? He liked that I was funny and, sarcastic. He liked that I was sincere in who I was as a person and how I felt about him and everything else in my life. And he also liked that I was intimate. I'm super touchy-feely and like cuddly and, PDA and clingy, he's into that. So, he's perfect for me. Did you have a timeline for marriage in your mind before you got married? Yes. My mom got married when she was 19, and I was like, my whole life, I am getting married at 19. I don't care what anybody says. And I had my serious boyfriend break up with me when I was 18, and I had a panic attack. I was like, oh my gosh, I planned to get married at 19. This guy is ruining my plan. But I met Gavin, and I got married at 19. And I didn't get married just because I was 19. I got married because I loved him. Did you have to nudge your husband towards marriage, or did it happen on its own? So we both knew that we wanted to get married that coming summer. I didn't really nudge him, but my mom would not let me plan until I had a ring on my finger, so I definitely nudged him to like pop the question. And we were actually like kind of getting into it the day that he did propose to me, because I was like, come on dude, like we are getting married in like 6 months, you need to pop the question. And I was kind of in a mood that day, and I came home from school and he had my place all decked out in roses and candles to ask the question, so I felt like a complete jerk. How did your parents influence the kind of marriage you wanted? My parents were and are super playful. I loved their PDA. They were never embarrassed to show us that side of them. My dad would smack my mom on the butt, and my mom would give kisses in front of us, and I loved that part of them, and that is something that I always wanted to make sure that I passed on to my kids. I want my kids to know that I'm in love with their dad, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, and that's probably the best thing that I learned from my parents. I would also say that I learned a lot about respecting your husband from my mom. My mom was super good about, you know, making sure that my dad stayed the head of the household, and she was very respectful to him, and that's something that I definitely have had to learn over the years, because I had a little bit of a struggle with that, because I'm pretty hard-headed, but my mom has influenced that in my marriage as well. What did you love most about your wedding? The reception! Yeah! I had a blast at my reception. We had no alcohol or anything like that, but we had a lot of people show up. My family is dancing fools, and we got a lot of us, so we literally danced until midnight. Like, we did not leave our reception until midnight, and that was like, everybody was still there by midnight. So we finally were like, come on people, we gotta get going. But it was so much fun. The food was good, and everybody was just around. My husband is not a dancer, and he was getting down. And it was a blast. What elements of your wedding didn't matter as much as you thought? I was not a bridezilla. I basically had my mom do everything. The only thing that I wanted was my wedding dress. The rest, I could have cared less. The day of my wedding, my flowers were a little messed up. They weren't how I wanted them to be, but in the end, it really didn't matter at all, because I never kept them. I don't even remember what they looked like. So just the little details don't matter at all, because you won't remember it. Is the first year of marriage really the hardest? No. For some people it is, but Gavin and I did not live together our first year of marriage. I was still in college, so I lived in Jeff City 4 or 5 days out of the week while he stayed in New London. And so we weren't really like fully living together, so I think that was honestly the easiest year for us. I would say year 2 or year 5 was the hardest for us, definitely. But marriage is hard, so you just gotta keep chugging through. What advice would you give newlywed couples? Don't do it! No, I'm just kidding. Definitely number 1 is to put God first. You know, you want to put Him above each other and above everything else, or your marriage is going to come crumbling down. I think that that's the biggest flaw that people don't think about is, you know, if you're right with God, your marriage is going to be right, and it's going to be amazing. I also think that one thing that I really have learned recently is, another thing is, as women especially, we let our emotions and our feelings run our thoughts, and our feelings are not correct. They're not the truth. Kind of like in a text message, you know, you can like get a text and it's totally not what that person meant, is how you read it. So you have to pause for a second in real life as well, and just don't let your feelings get the best of you, and make sure that you are logically thinking through what that person is saying before you get all worked up and be like, you don't even love me, dude. Like, you need to like chill out and think about what they're actually trying to say and not lose your cool. If you're religious, how has your faith influenced your marriage? A lot. Like, it has, you know, we have definitely noticed when God is not at the top of our pyramid. That's when we struggle the most, is when we're not in the Word and praying and making sure that we're at church. That's when we fight all the time. That's when we make mistakes. We definitely have to strive to make sure that God is number one in both of our lives individually and also together, because that's when we flourish, I feel like. And can't go wrong at all with God at the top of your marriage. And if you want a great marriage, then that's who you're gonna worship before anything else. So, okay, that's all the questions I have. Thanks for watching again, and make sure you subscribe. Thanks, guys.